This week's episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast is brought to you by The Restillery. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm Perry. I'm your host, and I am super excited to have a friend of the show, mutual friend through other shows as well.
Oh, God.
We won't talk too much about old Daisy Batch Wine, trust me. Dixon Dedman of the Beaumont Inn and the Old Owl Tavern. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that's
okay,
great. Yeah.
Dixon, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to be on the show.
Allowing you? What does that mean?
No, I just you're sticking your neck out there, putting this microphone in front of this redneck.
So last time we saw each other was back in August. We were at Southern Whiskey Society.
I was a victim that night, by the way. I don't know where you're going with this, but I was a victim.
No, it was a good time.
It was a good time, all right. Yeah.
We had quite a bit of fun, and the after party was great, and we won't go into it too much to preserve reputations.
I didn't stick around. It was not in my best interest.
No, it was a good time. I mean, we got to connect for the first time there and talk a little bit about Kentucky Owl and all the cool things that you're doing. But we'll go into it a little bit more, of course, throughout the course of this episode. But before we do that, I recently introduced a new segment called Flying Blind, where I like to try something that is either new to me or we've tried before and haven't had in a while. And in this case, it's going to be something you have never had before. And I blinded you with it's an Old Grandad 114 bottle, but there's something in there that it's not Old Grandad 114. So I figured, see what the master himself.
First thing out of the gate, put a microphone in front of me, and then say, "Give me your thoughts on this whiskey you've never had before." This is where I hurt somebody's feelings, or
you say whatever you want to. I won't. I know that there are plenty of people who won't take offense to it.
I know it's like work, man.
Well, we'll just go with like immediate reactions then. I won't go too deep into tasting notes or whatever. But what do you think? What do you think, Dixon?
Well, I don't think it's really it's not something. To me, it's first blush, first taste of the day. That's saying something for me to make it to 4 o'clock for the first taste of the day. I get stressed around 2 o'clock, and I'm like, I think I need to go sample something.
I'm gonna go work on batch 9.
I gotta go do some work. It's not. I don't think it's some like crazy vintage old dusty thing or something like that.
Yeah.
And initially, I am very much a sensory taster.
Yeah.
And I am a location, location on the palate. Like
sure.
that's where my mind goes to things.
Yeah.
This, to me, is not overly high in proof, but it's also very much spreads across the middle of the palate.
Yeah.
And it's not on the tip of the tongue. Mm-hmm. It's not, some super sweet weeded product. And it's not some really high rye spice bomb finish thing. It really spreads across the middle of the palate, which to me would indicate a lesser amount of rye in the mash bill and potentially a higher malt content in the mash bill.
Sure.
Is what I would think initially.
Well, you're definitely right about the lesser rye content because it is a wheated whiskey.
Oh,
wheated
okay.
bourbon.
It's a wheated bourbon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that sense, I don't want to say anything ugly. I don't think there's anything. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I would. I don't. But this doesn't strike me as having significant barrel interaction to really get a certain rich, sweet mouth,
Sure.
mouthfeel that you expect from some older
Yeah.
weeded distillates. I
So
mean, it's definitely not, it's not some big spice thing on the back, but
Right.
it's not as far, it's not as forward on the palate,
Right.
indicating the inclusion of more of those caramelized sugars from the barrel.
So if this went into a batch of Kentucky Owl, this would definitely benefit from more time in the barrel. Is what kind of what you're.
I would, if yes.
Yeah. You seemed very hesitant to answer that question.
You're probably going to tell me that this is like my good friend down the road stuff or something like that. Then I'm going to have to be like, oh, no.
No, so this was an experiment I actually did with blending. And it was Weller Special Reserve, Old Fitz, Bottled and Bond, and then Maker's Cast Strength. And it was equal parts between the three. And it's kind of been mingling for a few months now. But I just thought I'd bring something to the table.
It was Weller what?
Special Reserve.
Oh, okay.
Just the regular 90 proof Weller.
Yeah, so I think what you've got is you've got essentially youthful weeded distillate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I mean, that's it. And I guarantee you that if we poured this next to, and I'm happy to go find something so that we can prove this. All right, I'll be right back.
Yeah. I don't even know what this is that you're pulling.
I'll pour you something you've never had.
That's what I'm here for. Man, look at how much darker that is than what I poured.
So what you've got is you've got weeded distillate, and this would be similar barrels to what I put in the single barrels of Kentucky Owl that we did. This was a very prominent in batch 6. It was also in batch 7, a little bit in batch 8. But
Yeah.
what you've got is weeded distillate that's spent a lifetime. It spent like 4 years in a new barrel and then was rebarreled a second time. And so you've got that forced. That really it's kind of a double aging, but it's a lot of that barrel exposure.
And it shows through. For sure.
So I think if you think about it, for me, think about how much further forward towards the tip of your tongue this is
absolutely.
than this one. Mm-hmm. And that's the development and inclusion, or the exposure to the oak and the drawing in of those natural sugars that have been caramelized. So nothing wrong with yours.
I mean, it's not going anywhere towards.
No, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like knowing that it was something that you threw together and you didn't like pour me something that.
It was a buddy's decision.
Well, right.
Yeah. Made you feel a little better about it.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. And I mean, I feel better about it, too, that you can ease into it a little bit more.
No, I'm just kidding.
Man, this is really good, though. This is fabulous. And is this just straight from the barrel, too?
Straight from the barrel, yeah.
My goodness. No, I do like the comparison between the two, though. And, like, I completely get what you're... Because this is about 100 proof-ish. And to drink this next to something that's straight from the barrel. So, I mean, barrel proof, really shows what a little bit longer in the barrel can do.
Yeah, but I think it's the same thing as drinking Weller Special Reserve next to Weller 12. Mm-hmm. It's a richer, more syrupy, sweeter. It's further. It just, and it's just, that's just the barrel interaction that takes place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your blend is really growing on me, though. I'm serious.
Suck it, Grease. Well, Well, I mean, that's good to hear, though. I appreciate that. So, feel free to use it in whatever you need to in the future. If whatever. I'm throwing that out there for you.
I appreciate that. I mean, that's documented. Now.
Hey, one of the other things I like to ask too at the top of the episode is what you've been drinking recently. So, Dixon, what have you been drinking or tasting recently?
I have been tasting a lot of stuff. I have been on a real gin and tonic tear here lately.
Yeah?
No, I'm just kidding. I mean, yes, sometimes.
What gin?
It's funny when the more I spend, or when I have to really start working on and I realize that sounds super lame. Like, I was working on like. People are like,
I don't think it does.
Really? Like you're sitting, I know, but people are like, so really?
Sure.
Like you sit around and drink bourbon all afternoon and you call that work? And but it's funny, like, I go home and sit down with my wife, and like she's having a drink, and there's 100 bottles of open bourbon there, and and it is the last place I want to go. You know what I mean? Like, you drink it all,
of course,
and it's just
course.
like, if I have to taste bourbon, I don't care what it is,
It's like taking work home with you.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, that's goofy. But I have just received a couple Four Roses private selections from some different,
Very cool.
And I participated in those picks, so people were nice enough to send me
nice.
like a bottle, and it's, I mean, that's, you talk about another, tough, it's like, you get this call, it's like, hey, we've never met, but we're going to be picking a barrel at Four Roses at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. Would you have any interest? And I'm like, I'll be there. So.
No question.
Yeah, that's
cool, though. I mean,
no, it's great.
I like that people are, willing to approach you and want you to be
I'm
a part
a
of
very
things,
difficult individual to approach. I'm super intimidating.
I mean, the fact that I emailed you and 5 minutes later you got right back to me, I mean, that's just indicative of how hard you are to communicate.
I was working with a whole bunch of samples in front of me, and my laptop just happened to be open, but it worked out.
And that's encouraging, too. So I just recently opened up this bottle of the Bell Mead Cast Strength Reserve, which I have found to be just an incredible pour at the price, at the proof, and everything. There aren't a whole lot of 50, 40 sub-dollar bourbons out there right now, that are of this quality and this high of proof, too. And so I brought it to the table. The reason I brought it to the table is because the first time that I had it was actually at Southern Whiskey Society, and I don't know if you made it around to the Bell Mead table or not.
I did not, and again, I was a victim at this past. Was this past time or yes?
Yeah.
I was definitely a victim this time around, and
Explain what you mean by that.
The people who took advantage of me know who they are. I do hope they're listeners of yours, because I'm calling them out.
I'm gonna text one of them right now.
Well, it's not the normal suspects.
Oh, okay.
Or I mean, they watched and laughed, but there was just a couple people that just thought it would be really fun after I got done to bring in about 15 different things and say, "Hey, try this. Now try this. Now try this." And I had, I will admit to being a willing victim, but I was definitely a victim. So I didn't make it very far from our table, except for a couple trips to get something to eat.
Sure. And then up to the stage too to sit down with them. But that was a fun conversation to listen to.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but anyway, I just wanted to bring this along because I really like this bottle and don't know whether or not you.
Look who's I see that.
That's one of the people that
They were not. guilty. It was not them. It was it was a.
I'm gonna let him think that it was.
That's fine.
Though for a little
that's
bit.
fine. That's fine. It wouldn't have been him anyway.
No,
I know.
I know.
His accomplice.
He was. Absolutely. And I was victimizing his accomplice as well.
Okay.
In the meantime, but anyway.
Yeah, that was a funny thing. I don't know. I very, very truly, got. I mean, the story that Chris Thomas tells about, he just randomly said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing Southern Whiskey Society?"
Yeah.
And after everything that had gone on with, and it, I wanted to make sure that Kentucky Owl still had a presence in the South. We're still, Kentucky still gets more Kentucky Owl than anybody else. But and so the Southern Whiskey Society and getting involved in an event like that was something that was really important to me and something that really sounded like fun. So I did. I jumped on it, and I had no idea what to expect. And it was such an amazing event. But the next thing you know, I'm half drunk in the back of a Tesla going 0 to 60 in 2 seconds with Will and the Greaves and Chris Thomas. And I'm kind of like, where am I? But this is, quite an adventure at the same time. So, naturally, obviously it's turned into more and then with, doing the second one and everything.
Yeah. And there's nothing that can harm you by going to an event like that and promoting your brand either, because, I think that you're in an interesting situation where you want to promote something that is so near and dear to your family, the Kentucky Owl brand, and to your heritage, that, people at times could look at it like a gimmick. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you are willing to go to things like Southern Whiskey Society or continue to host tastings here at the Inn, it's a real testament to the fact that you still see yourself as a person and you still want to establish yourself as a person behind a brand.
Yes. I mean, that is a very nice compliment, and I certainly appreciate that. I think one of the unintended things that is transpired, unintended, I don't mean to call it an unintended consequence, but that there's a little bit of a brand. There's Kentucky Owl, and I want to promote Kentucky Owl, and I want to be, and I want everyone to be very clear about the fact that, Kentucky Owl is me. I'm doing Kentucky Owl. I do it right here.
Yeah.
There's not, I don't just go put on the logoed shirt and rep it when I want to or whatever, but that, as long as I'm involved with Kentucky Owl, nobody's touching Kentucky Owl but me. But also, kind of appreciate that, people have, there's more to it. It's not that they're just a fan of a brand. They seem to enjoy engaging with me, and that's part of the real part of, or maybe the thing I enjoy most about about being in this industry or what we're doing is kind of being a person and being a real person, not just just a brand. And that's like, you get the emails and people send the pictures and they're like, hey, just got engaged and, we've been waiting for the right time and we just cracked open, this batch number 2 I've been saving for, had some people in here a couple nights ago and this guy had bought a batch 7 and his granddaughter was born, and so he actually took it into the hospital, and they got those little styrofoam cups out of the the coffee lounge or whatever, and they toasted with. And it was awesome. Those are the things that are really cool. Or just getting to meet people, or telling lies, or having too much to drink, or whatever. It's good. I mean, that's what's fun about all this. And
well, and it excites me too to hear that you are that excited and interested and invested in the storytelling aspect of it all too. So aside from being it's in some ways a whiskey maker, or a whiskey blender. Do you consider yourself a storyteller too?
I come from a long line of storytellers, and I mean, of course, but I was born and raised and still very much in the hospitality industry.
Sure.
And hospitality is about, I don't mean to say entertaining, but that's part of it, and that's not that's just the way I'm wired. I'm not wired to just, hey, I'm Dixon Dedman, thank you for being here. Whatever. Does that, you know what I'm saying?
No, you're not just a face. You are.
Yeah, I mean, it's
you're
actually
part of it.
really. I mean, I really, and it's not just Kentucky Out. I mean, my life is engaging with people and
of course,
and stuff. And so, this is just kind of another platform for that as well. I guess.
Yeah.
I'm pouring your Bell Mead.
You were going for the Bell Mead?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it.
I'm not even asking permission. I'm just doing it.
I'm not going to tell you no. I hope you know that. I'll go for that next.
Then I'll pour you some too.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And then I think at some point I have to have you try this Jim Beam from '78.
Nice.
Which look, I don't know where you were in the night. That Saturday at Southern Whiskey Society.
In 1978 or?
But I did throw a sample on your lap while you were sitting up with Will and the Grease of this particular bourbon, but I realized that there's a chance.
Was it a sample bottle or did I?
Yeah, it was a little sample bottle.
That's what that is. All right. I know what's in the mystery sample bottle I got at home. Brought back from Tennessee. Well, cleared a few things up at this point.
Okay, well, we'll try a little bit of it,
Yeah.
and then you can actually, have it have it at home.
It's going to be very familiar, I think.
Man, one of the things I love about the Bell Mead is it has kind of a vintage mustiness to the nose on it, which is interesting for. I mean, it's a whiskey that came out this year. It came out a few months ago. 114 proof, right?
This is am I okay to say that this reminds me of, did you ever have the Carruthers Bell Mead pick that's the one that those
that they talked about all
they
the time.
talk about all the time.
I've actually not had it.
The very similar vein to this. There's a certain, and this is not in a bad way. This is not Grease sounding like a moron screaming gushers and stuff like that. But there's like a plum or grapey kind of note, like a fruit, like a deep fruit note.
Absolutely,
that's a great bottle.
Yeah, and it complements so well all of those traditional like caramel notes that you would just get out of a standard bottle of bourbon, and it just seems like they really took the time to figure out what it was they wanted to go into their next release, and this is, I think, a very elevated product.
I would agree.
Yeah, especially at this price range.
The mouthfeel of the syrupy kind of rich quality is exceptional.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
I had to take another sip. Sorry.
No.
No,
listen, please drink as much of it as you want. It's no big deal.
Oh, okay. As much as the bottle.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah. So Batch 8 just came out of Kentucky Owl. So you are how many years into? Is it actually 8 years into the Kentucky Owl brand?
No, the first batch one was 2014.
Oh wow!
And then the reason we got a lot of batches in there was that we did batch 2 in September of 15. And then I really wanted to try this single barrel thing. So we actually did batches 3, 4, and 5 were all single barrels released in December of 2015.
Yeah.
And so they were just, 200 to 225 bottles in each of those very small batches. And that went well. That went well.
There's a little bit of like pride behind that. I heard that in your voice.
It was cool.
Okay.
It was awesome. And it's one of those things. Contract bottling a single barrel and keeping that moving, and there's just a lot of things that I'd love to bring that concept back one day. I would love to. It's a little tough logistically, especially at that time, to determine what barrels you would reserve for a single barrel program, what barrels you would keep to put into the, I just didn't have it or don't have it now to kind of do that. And if we get there one day, I would love to be able to do that. But
so, what is then kind of your long-term vision for Kentucky Owl? I mean, is it an infinite number of batches, or are you just kind of going batch by batch?
To be totally honest, I'm not quite sure I can admit to ever having a long-term vision for Kentucky Owl.
Sure.
We didn't really start with a plan other than we thought this would be a lot of fun, and I wanted to put a Kentucky Owl label back out there, and if it didn't sell, I could say that we had done it. I had some bottles held back for my kids. My dad and I could crack a bottle and toast at Christmas, and just kind of and it sure took off a lot faster than I would have anticipated. So as far as saying what is the goal, my goal is only to continue to create what I think is the best combination of what is available to me, and put it out there. And that's really what my goal is. And I don't, I don't have these benchmarks like, oh, I need to be at this case volume at this point, or I need to be at that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even, that doesn't even, it's not even on my radar.
It's not something you process, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm sure that is kind of exciting for the artistry side of it, too. It gives you the freedom to do exactly what you want with it and not be confined to time limits or
let me point out that
go ahead.
I do have this relationship with Stoli.
Yeah,
and
of course.
So it's they're very supportive, and it's been it's a learning process for everybody, trying to figure out and going to explain the angel share. That didn't go over real well. So I can't, I can only give them the information that I have and tell them, look, this is what I'm comfortable doing, and this is what I'm interested in doing, and this is what I think is best for this brand, and they're very receptive to that, and they're very supportive of that, and there's, I won't, there's discussions sometimes about like, hey, could we do this? And it's like, I don't think that's a great idea, and here's why. And they're very receptive to that, and very so. There's a lot of things. I mean, I'm sure you've got on your list to talk about the distillery and all this kind of stuff. And quite frankly, like my job is the whiskey.
Yeah.
My job, my relationship with them is to, I'm telling my story.
Yeah.
I've got to, I have to be able to sleep at night. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
I've got to be
of
able. So
course.
I've got to tell my story, and I've got to be proud of what I'm putting in the bottle. And if that ever changes, then But so there's a lot of that. The distillery is a fabulous project. It's an amazing project. It's going to be. I can't even really wrap my mind around what it's probably going to be, but that's a long-term project.
Sure.
And so I've just got to be, I just take every day, worry about what I got to worry about, worry about what I can control, and be proud of what I'm doing and the process that I'm a part of.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. Well, I mean, we will get to talking about the distillery too at some point, but I have to kind of back up a little bit and ask you, what is it that allows Dixon Dedman Master Blender to sleep at night? Then I mean, what is it that eases your thoughts and worries and fears about what you're doing, or what's going on with your product in the bourbon rye, the whiskey world?
Yeah, I mean, it basically because I like to think of myself as a pretty humble and pretty genuine, and I have a history. I have a legacy, a family legacy. I have things I'm very proud of. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish here at the inn. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish with Kentucky Owl. I'm proud of and I'm proud of every single drop of every single whiskey that today and moving forward I have been responsible for going into the market, and I'm proud of that. And I feel like it's it's part of me, who I am, being true to what I think is important, being true to kind of the goals I've set for myself and the standard I have for myself, and so that's part of how I sleep at night. The other part is a healthy pour right before bed.
Well, what I'm getting from it then is that you recognize and accept deadlines, and that once that point of I can't do anything else about the way that this product is received, or the numbers behind it, once you understand that that's out of your hands, that helps you function day to day.
That's I know where you're going with that, and I mean, there are multiple sides to every. Listen, I just had to run into a liquor store a second ago to pick up something. This bottle of wine for my wife after I dropped my daughter off because she was like, "We got some people coming over here," and I was like, "All right, I'll be right back." But I had to run into this liquor store a second ago, and Kentucky Owl Rye Batch 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there on the counter, and it's it's $3.99.99. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that that bothers me. No, I'm sure
That price?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, it kills me. I'm all for. I don't know. I mean, I know that there are.
You got a little bit of water left in your glass. I don't want you to dilute a 90 proof bourbon already.
I realize that store owners are in the business of making money. And I get it. I totally get it. Sure. And because I want everybody to make as much money as they can. But that's that was not what I had in mind. Now, excuse me.
You're good.
It's a weird place to be in where on the one side, I'm trying not to say anything that's going to make me sound like a jerk, but on the one side, as a producer, if you know what somebody's paying for a bottle, you know what they're taking it in for, and then you know what they're trying to get at retail, and if they get that or close to that, and you know that they're putting significantly more cash in their pocket just from taking it in the back door and watching it go out the front, then their net is greater than yours.
Sure, absolutely.
There's a certain, I think on the business side, there's and let me tell you, nobody asked me what I think the price of Kentucky Owl should be anymore. I'm not in that. That's not a conversation I'm a part of.
You heard it here first,
right? But
because a lot of people are willing to let you cop the blame for that. They go, oh, it's $200 above MSRP. What's Dixon thinking about all when he does this? But
yeah, I don't. When they put their sticker price on that thing, they don't call me and say, "Hey, are you okay with this?" I don't know. It's just a weird space. There's and I'm not. I go hunting for. I go looking for stuff. I'm an equal. I'm not just sitting at home drinking Kentucky Owl all the time. I love bourbon. I love all bourbons. I love whiskeys. And there are things I see all the time. I think, gosh, I would love to have that bottle, but I'm not paying that price.
So to that end, what are you drinking when you're not, sipping on Kentucky Owl?
Well, like I said, I mean, I drink a lot of Four Roses. I drink a lot of. I love different picks. I love, I love trying kind of things that are a little bit off profile from what I'm used to having. And,
sure.
And so I love good rye whiskey. And so I have, how it is. I mean, there's a lot of stuff over at my house, and I just kind of like what moving through bottles, pushing through bottles, and what looks good, and whatever. But I don't know. I am very conflicted on that whole argument of, what's going on at the retail price point level, and I think it's a much larger conversation than just saying, oh, those XYZ company is jacking up prices to try to make, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to defend anybody or really put the onus on anybody, but I think there are a lot of factors going on there as to why this, you continue to see the price points of things, go up and up and up. And the reality is, if people are willing to pay insane prices, then people are going to charge insane prices.
And I think that's the, kind of unfortunate side of it too, is that, despite the fact that, people are still interested in trying good bourbon, good whiskey, that they are spending that much on it. And there are companies that are taking advantage of those people too. But so we are checking out this Jim Beam from
It's like
1978,
like butterscotch candy,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
the little yellow candy in the
That
yellow,
your grandparents
right,
had.
yes.
Yeah. I think that's actually pretty close to what Will said. At
Yeah,
the
it's not like
Studios.
but it's not the like the Werther's. It's like the yellow one, like the bright yellow one.
I know exactly what you're talking about. There is something kind of, I don't know what it is specifically, but almost grassy, sitting somewhere towards the middle or back of the palate too, that I'm latching onto, and it may be just kind of like a general earthiness to it as well.
I can see, to me, I can see more of like a straw.
Okay.
Like grassy always
That makes
is more
sense,
like
sure.
green and tannic and bitter to me is
Right.
in my mind. There's it's like straw. Like
Yeah,
straw,
absolutely.
like-
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. And I guess it's just, what I'm trying to, I compare it to is just, smaller.
No. So that's what I love. Like kind of a dried, like
I know exactly what you're saying.
But
yeah.
I'm so focused on, laser focused on both kind of the sensory thing, but also, sometimes I taste something and I'm like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of the way that our lake house smelled in the morning when you know what I mean? Like it just puts you in
absolutely.
weird spots. I was with a
Absolutely.
guy the other night. He's one of my good friends, and he's great. And he just tasted something. He's like, oh my gosh, this tastes like when you finish a popsicle and then you chew on the popsicle stick. Like he was like, that's what it tastes like. But it's just I love things like that.
Yeah.
Those types of associations.
And I think too what that is kind of implying is the deep seated history that has gone into bourbon production too. And a big part of Kentucky Owl has been your history, has been your legacy with the Beaumont Inn and with the Dedman family, with your namesake. So what is it about what they were doing back then that has influenced the way that you have wanted to approach Kentucky Owl and your whiskey?
Well,
I know that's a little
no,
like
it's
multi-layered.
well,
but-
I'm just thinking about. It's funny. I gotta go answer some questions about something very similar here in just a little bit, but it'll be even better after a few pours with you. The first thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is so the inn celebrates 100 years next year.
Yeah.
And so there's I've got to go answer some questions put to me by this writer was asking me these questions in a phone interview, and I was like, look, that's the way. I don't mean to say deeper, but that just requires a lot more thought than me firing off what comes to mind. And she was like, totally understand and want this. She was like, I want you to be able to answer these with some thought. So, but to her, what she was kind of asking was, what how she asked it. But my answer to her was, we didn't make changes for the sake of making changes. We didn't do things just for the sake of doing things or because we didn't like what you change what you're doing, and you kind of, your business changes, your model changes, your market changes, what you're doing changes in an effort to survive, in an effort to thrive, in an effort to continue the legacy that you're leading, in an effort to continue to tradition is something that happens over time, and so if you really love what you're doing and you believe in what you're doing and you're proud of what you're doing and you want to continue to do it and you want to leave it for the people that come behind you, you make decisions that you're proud of, but that you put you in a position to succeed, and it put you in a position to pay your bills and to move forward and things like that. And so, I have great pride in what we've accomplished here and in the amount of time that we've been here, and I'm very proud of the name that my family has established in this industry and in Kentucky. And I will never or don't intend to ever do anything to hamper that or and as such, when we talk about Kentucky Owl or what I try to do, publicly, or who I try to be in my life, or or opening a door for somebody, or it's just it sounds really lame, but it's I try to. Everything I do is with the intent of kind of carrying on a legacy and a tradition, and being someone that's well thought of, and somebody that people want to be around, and I don't want to be thought of somebody that puts out phony whiskey or whatever, and I'll stand by whatever I've put out. I have no problem that people don't like some of it, and that's okay.
Sure.
And that's but I believe that it's it's something I'm proud of, and so that's really I don't even know if I really answered your question, but
well, but you want to keep doing this for as long as you can, right?
I certainly do. Certainly do, and it's I'm finally kind of starting to get the balance down of like time away to I've Tuesday morning 8 a.m. flight out Chicago all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, got back to my house about 10 o'clock Wednesday night, so I did but I love it. I love going. I love meeting people. I love telling that story. I love being a part of that. I had this guy come up to me and he was like, they make us come to these trainings all the time. And whether it's a winemaker or whatever, and they have their PowerPoint and all that stuff, and the guy looked at me and he said, "I'll tell you something. This is the most powerful one I've ever been to." And I was like, "Wow, what's that about?" He's like, he said, "We came in, sat down. As soon as you walked in the room, you went around and shook everybody's hand and said, 'Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here.'" And he was like, "Nobody does that." And I was like, "That's just what I mean. You took out, you're here. Thank you. I appreciate you being here." And that's just, I love that. I love telling that story. I love being part of that. And I don't want somebody else telling that story. I want to be the one telling that story. So finding the balance to be here and do what I got to do here, or not what I got to do, but to do this.
Yeah. No, I think that people understand what you mean.
So I'm starting to find that, and but yeah, I have no plans to stop doing this anytime soon.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Perry, but we got to talk about our sponsor this week, and that is The Restillery. So The Restillery is a company that builds lamps out of old used bourbon bottles, and they are absolutely beautiful pieces of work. I can attest to that myself. Dustin and the gang over there sent me a lamp, actually, and it is a Blanton's bottle sitting on top of a barrel head and surrounded by the Blanton's corks. And if you know anything about the Blanton's corks, you know that if you get all of them, it spells out the name Blanton's, and it looks like a jockey who's running a race all the way through and, of course, winning. And it's super beautiful, and I love it a lot. And they are currently doing as well their holiday charity event over on Facebook, a link to which you can actually find below in the description of this episode. So definitely go and check them out. They're great people. Their products are amazing. And you definitely want to get one in time for the holidays, too. It's going to make a great gift for the bourbon lover in your life, of course. But anyway, thank you to the Restillery so much for all that they've done for the show. And now, back to me and Dixon. you identify more of as your legacy? The Beaumont Inn or Kentucky Owl?
That's tough because I feel like right now Kentucky Owl is getting a lot more attention. Just because we're growing nationally or whatever, but I still identify much more with being Dixon Dedman, fifth generation innkeeper of Beaumont Inn, than I do of Dixon Dedman, Kentucky Owl. I mean, this is Kentucky Owl is a big part of my life right now, and has been for the last several years. Beaumont Inn has been a part of my life since the moment I was
Since
born.
you were born, yeah.
And Kentucky Owl has been a great ride for me. I've met a lot of wonderful people and done a lot of wonderful things, and things I never thought I would be fortunate enough to do. But I think back about the people who were most instrumental in my life, and they're my father, my grandfather, my mother, my grandmother. And being raised in the inn. I mean, I was raised.
Yeah.
So. Well, right now, snapshot right now, Kentucky Owl is probably, what? Yes, I don't know, but I identify. I think if I had to close my eyes and say if you said who are you, the first thing that would come out of my mouth would be fifth generation, but it would be the Beaumont Inn thing,
not whiskey maker, not whiskey blender, not.
I'm and. I don't. It's funny. Like, you go to those things, and I'm oftentimes, called a master distiller. I'm no master distiller.
But you're not, yeah.
And I'm oftentimes referenced with people I have no business being. I have no business sitting at the table with some of the people, and it's true. It's the honest to goodness truth, and. I have no business carrying Jimmy or Eddie Russell's lunchbox. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I know that.
Well, to that end, though, how do you get along with the other greats in the industry, with the actual master distillers? I mean, is it?
Whoa. Let me back you up there.
Did you?
I'm happy for you to reference the greats in the industry. But don't you put my name anywhere near that.
I'm not taking
list.
that out. I'm leaving it.
No, take that out of there.
Well, how do you commingle then with the actual master distillers then, and the people who have established themselves with these brand names? I mean, are you accepted by them? Have you found that you have your own kind of niche relationship with some of these figures in the industry, or are you on your own?
No. I am very, very fortunate to call a lot of those people friends. I am very fortunate to I'm just happy sometimes when they remember my name.
Sure.
But
I sat down with one of them today, Jim Rutledge.
Yeah, we've met.
Yeah.
But I know exactly who I am, and I know who deserves the respect, and I was raised that way, and I'm very fortunate to be accepted and I think respected,
Sure.
and that's the feeling that I get, and that's something I'm very proud of, and something I appreciate, and something that I take very seriously. I'm not a like I have no no business, and don't consider myself anywhere near, you know, the level of individual that you're talking about.
Sure.
You know, it's a great honor sometimes when you know when you know and I remember I gave a bottle of Kentucky Owl in front of a big group of guys one time to, I won't tell you who it was, but it was somebody of the, it was a very well known, well respected. It's not Jim Rutledge, but so, and it was pretty damn cool. This guy, you know, there's all these guys around, and I said, "Hey, I haven't seen you in forever. I wanted to bring you this." And he said, "I'll be right back." He went, and he got a pen and brought it back and said, "Will you sign it for me?" Yeah. And you know, that was, you know, and of course the other problem was that everybody that was there was like, "Oh my God, he's there!" You know, but you know, it wasn't. That was not lost on me. But I don't. Of course not. You know, and let me be very clear as well. You know, while I don't, there are the old guard, there's the new guard, and the new guard, very, very talented, very, very capable, very, very intelligent. You know, and I'm not in that. I'm not there either.
Sure.
You know, I'm a guy that puts some stuff together because, you know, I started drinking too much at a young age or something like that. You know what I mean? But, you know, I'm very proud of where I am, and I think of the reception we get, and I'm very proud of the way I'm received both in the bourbon community and in the bourbon industry. But I have to remind myself to make sure to point out, you know, that I'm not, you know, and I don't really. It's not like that's where I want to be. Like it's not where, you know. I just
sure.
I'm you know, just cognizant of the fact that, you know, it's often misunderstood, and I don't want people to think that I misunderstand myself for some, you know, icon of the industry or
You're
something
aware.
like that. Yes.
Do you consider yourself more of a whiskey blender or a whiskey sipper?
I'm definitely a whiskey drinker. I don't know.
I was trying to be kind in my adjective there.
I really love the way that the Kentucky Owl process has evolved. It's oftentimes a very, this doesn't sound right, but I don't mean to say therapeutic, but the more that has happened with Kentucky Owl, the more there is, there's just a lot more outside stuff. There's a lot more of the media stuff. There's a lot more of the, you know, the market visits and the, you know, the taste, you know, and so, you know, the like locking myself in this room and laying out the samples, you know, 60, 80, 100 samples, and really trying to, you know, to just focus on dialing in a blend and see where it goes and see what develops. You know, that's something I truly enjoy. I truly love it. And you know, you talk about thinking of myself as a blender. I mean, I do think of myself as a blender. But it is, gosh, this is going to sound lame. It is almost like a bit of an artistic thing, you know.
Not lame at all.
It's
not lame at all.
It's one of those, you know, if I had like a studio and actually had the ability to paint, and you just kind of put on some music and tune everything else out and just paint, or, you know, and for me, I mean, it does involve whiskey, but, you know, just kind of that locking yourself in, and there's really nobody else involved, and there's nobody you have to answer to, and there's nobody, and I'm just dialed in on trying to create something, and that's that's probably what I enjoy most about what what's going on and what we're doing.
So, Kentucky Owl is your canvas then?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. I'm going to use that.
I'm ready to pour something else.
Yeah,
You want something?
sure.
So I have this Russell's pick from BHG, or I have this Knob Creek 14-year pick that came out of the barrel at 121 proof.
It's your call. I'm up for anything.
Okay with either or?
Yeah.
Well, I say we can get to both at some point, but
Okay.
I say we start with the Russells then because it's
works.
a little bit lower proof. If
Okay.
that's okay by you. So we touched on a
So
little
how
bit.
old is that?
This has got to be from 20. Let's see. OBC opened in 2013 or 2014. So it's got to be 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
obviously the old.
Yeah. Oh, look, 2014.
Okay.
So there you go. Yeah.
I just didn't know. I don't know when they changed the label. Do you?
Fairly recently, I would say, but
No, it's been a couple years.
has it?
Yeah.
Oh. So long enough for me to forget when they actually did it.
But it's an O. I mean, I don't remember them doing. It was got to be one of the first
Sure.
O's.
Yeah.
Because they were only when they started the program like C's and G's and some H's or
Sure.
something like that.
Yeah, they weren't getting that far into it.
You ever done a Russell's pick?
I've not done a Russell's pick yet. I've done 2 Buffalo Trace picks, one at Four Roses and then one at Jim Beam for Knob Creek.
Russell's pick will change your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hanging out with Eddie and doing all that.
It is so laid back. It is so easygoing. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to sometime too. I mean, I know, of course, plenty of people at OBC, so I think I could, manage to make that happen.
That's a balance of like super like sweet, but also some
kind of,
it's kind of floral as well.
Yeah, there's a
that's
little
cool.
bit of like kind of dark chocolate bitterness to it, kind of nestled in between the two, I think. But it's such a different nose from any Russells that I've ever experienced, but it's certainly one of the best noses I've ever found on a pick or any whiskey for that matter. And you keep going back to it too. You really seem to be processing, what's going on
it's
the
a
nose.
it's a very complex nose. There is a lot. It's not a
one sniffer.
no. So I always use these glasses in tastings because you get the higher proof and you throw Glencairns in there and people stick their nose down in a really and they're done. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
it's over.
Yeah.
The benefit, and I'm not a glass snob by all means. People ask me all the time, like, how do you drink your whiskey or what glass do you prefer? And my answer is always a clean one. That's it. That's how I feel about it. But
And what is the actual title of these glasses?
I don't know, they're little 6-ounce wine glasses.
Okay,
that
they look like wine glasses. Fair
yeah,
enough.
and they're just they're things that we had. I mean, they're just something that I tend to gravitate towards. But what I find about these is, and they have a bit of a taper, but oftentimes at the bottom, you can pick up a different note than you can pick up at the top. And
yeah.
It's just I don't know why,
Yeah.
but you can kind of get different things instead of them being kind of one trick.
It seems like the top in this instance, is finding the lighter notes.
Right.
So some of the
So
fruity.
you get at the bottom, and it's that more of that kind of rich. I get your chocolate, and I'm getting that kind of a little bit butterscotch. And the further up you get, they get a little more floral and
and fruity. Yeah, absolutely. I like these glasses. I'm gonna have to get a set of them at some point.
I'll walk out of this room and 6 of them will be gone.
And a lot of that complexity too is carried over into the palate as well.
Wow.
Am I going to be able to leave with this bottle?
No, it's just, and I am a Russell's fan. This is going to get me in trouble probably, but there's a certain elegance to this that, it does, Russell's oftentimes is that kind of full flavored, heavier, and I love it. I mean, this is a very modest in
Yep.
it's wow, that's I was expecting this to be a little bit more robust, and I'm not saying that like I'm disappointed. I'm saying like it's a very elegant and
well balanced.
Yeah, I mean that's a great whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was happy that this kind of fell into my lap when, like we were saying, OBC started selling their picks too through BHG. But anyway, one of the things too that we touched on earlier, of course, was the distillery.
Mm-hmm.
What was your initial vision with that?
I can remember talking about a distillery years ago and thinking how cool it would be to have a home, for the brand again, and how cool it would be to have, a site and a place and and in a sense of, a living, breathing thing that you could go and touch and feel.
Of course.
And when in the infancy of, not that it's like been around since the beginning of time, but in the infancy of the kind of rebirth of Kentucky Owl, what we were doing and what we were trying to do and what we were trying to accomplish didn't mesh with managing a facility that was producing every single day.
Sure.
We were, and it's weird to, not weird to think about, but we were trying to we were putting away new fills from the time we started it, but I'm talking 20 here and 30 there and 40 there, and Kentucky Owl was a funny thing at that time because we would sell a batch and take a little bit of money for ourselves, not much money at all.
Sure.
And then reinvest everything back into new fills. And then when it came to the end of the year or tax time, and I had to, on paper, it looked like I had made all this money.
And you hadn't.
And I didn't have all that money. And there were a couple of meetings with my CPA, and I was like, what? Say what?
I don't know where that money is.
Yeah. So, what was working and what worked for us was create, finding stuff, rebarreling it, putting it, working with it, developing it, manipulating it, and then putting these blends together and growing it that way. And the operation of the overhead of a facility every day and taking that, that was something that sounded great, but was just not something I was interested in, not a path I was interested in going down. And when I talked to Stoley, when we talked to Stoley, they were very upfront and open about their interest in a facility and
Right.
creating a facility. And I know it's just us talking. Nobody listens to this, right? But
Cover your ears, kids.
it's not. This is not just a Kentucky Owl. I mean, it's Kentucky Owl, but this will support other brands. This will
Sure.
hopefully support a family of brands.
Yeah.
But part of what made them attractive to me, part of why we kept listening, I kept listening specifically about that part of the was to see this this big part of my family's history and story have a home. And to be able to have a place to tell that story, that tells that story.
And I'm sure too that other people cared about it, helped you a little bit
Sure.
too. In terms
Yeah,
of encouragement.
absolutely. But I mean, again, so the Stoli we were attracted to Stoli because we were ultra premium. We were in that ultra premium category.
Right.
Stoli is an ultra premium company. That's the space that they want to operate in.
Sure.
They don't and so they're not going to build a little metal building in the middle of a field and call it their distillery.
Sure.
So I'm completely blown away with what the plans are and the opportunity to be a part of that and the opportunity to play a small role in that big operation. I'm excited about the opportunity to have some. I think my role won't change. There will be. We can bring on some of the best people we can find to be a part of this whole thing.
Of course.
So.
Well, I mean, but it seems like you're kind of downplaying your importance in this, though. I mean, to say that you are a small part of it, it seems like an understatement to me because, it is a product of your relationship with Stoli and the fact that you had the vision to step forward with something like Kentucky Owl and that, other people wanting to latch on to that aside, you are, I think you're downplaying your role in this a little bit.
Well, you're right. I'm totally responsible for all of it.
And it goes back to what you're saying. I mean, it does come across how humble you are.
Well,
Honestly.
that somebody would feel as strongly as they do about putting this type of investment and this type of long-term program together is really difficult for me to wrap my mind around, not because I'm not proud of what we're doing, but because, I just am doing what I love to do and fortunate enough to be able to do it.
Of course.
So, does that make sense? I mean,
No,
I don't mean to.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not trying to sound ungrateful or.
No, absolutely not.
I mean,
And the way that I perceive that, too, is as, this has exceeded your expectations for your brand. I mean, the fact that, because it does kind of come across that you wanted to start Kentucky Owl, and that was just kind of it. Like, it was you operating, and I'm sure that you have a team behind you, to make that happen, but it doesn't sound necessarily like, somebody approached you. It was your vision, and
well, and I let me make sure that credit is given where credit is due, and a lot of credit is given to my partners in the initial venture, Mark and Sherry Carter. I mean, I would not be here, not anywhere remotely close to where we are without them. They were a big part of what we started and a big part of where, you know, I mean, it wouldn't have happened without them. So I don't, you know, I don't ever like to not ensure that they get credit for being a huge part of this. And they certainly were, and certainly are some of my dearest friends. And
Absolutely.
And I, you know, I honestly, you know, the relationship that I have now, you know, part of the whole deal is because, you know, I was able to. I can get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like, I could totally get hit by a bus walking across the street.
For the love of God, don't.
Well,
please.
I mean, and let's be honest, there aren't a whole lot of buses in Harrisburg, Kentucky. But I could, but, you know, my wife and my children are taken care of if something happens to me tomorrow. And that,
Sure.
you're talking about sleeping at night, like that's something that's
It
really,
helps.
really important to me.
Sure.
And so, you know,
Because family's a big part of this for you, too.
it's a huge part of it. It's all of it. It's you know, it's all
Yeah.
of it.
Do you foresee Kentucky Owl outliving you then?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Sure.
Whether or not it's your direct descendants or, you know, somebody else along the line that, you know, wants to take up that mantle?
You know, I hope that brand. I hope Kentucky Owl becomes synonymous. When people say bourbon, I hope they think Kentucky Owl. I mean, you know, of course, you know,
Why wouldn't
why
you?
wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know, and my son the other day came home from school with this little piece of paper, and he had drawn on it, and it was like the teacher wrote at the top, "When I grow up, ... and then he, you know, he drew the picture. He drew this picture, and then under it, it says, "I want to work with my dad." And, you know, and it was a picture of.
And your son's how old?
He's 5. And
so
he's
cool.
my middle. And I, you know, and I maybe that's Beaumont Inn. Maybe that's Kentucky Owl. Maybe it's Beaumont Inn and Kentucky Owl. Maybe
That's so cool, though.
Maybe we do some things really wrong, and we're like cleaning, you know, restrooms at a rest stop one day. I don't know, but you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it was pretty cool. It's being framed right now. Yeah.
So it's not a refrigerator piece. It's a
Oh yeah,
hanging on the wall
It's on the
piece.
wall piece.
Yeah.
It's a keeper.
good deal. All right, so we have one more pour left before we
Okay.
kind of wrap things up.
No, I might have to bring out something, you know. But
Man, I'm totally okay with that. I mean, that's all. You know.
or did you just plan on me drinking all your booze and then, you know?
Okay, so the last thing that I brought then was this Knob Creek pick that I was actually a part of.
Oh, cool.
I went with Liquor Barn,
Mm-hmm.
and we wound up picking 2 bourbons and 2 ryes. This was one of the 2 bourbons.
Nice.
It was 14 years old and came out of the barrel at 121 proof.
Okay.
So they
So
only
this
had
is
to add
basically
about
barrel proof, right.
as close to barrel proof Knob Creek as you can get. And spoiler alert, I have a little sample for Will and the Grease that they haven't tried yet. It's in
Okay.
a blind flight, but you know they don't know that, so I'm actually probably going to cut that out a little bit. Also, this cork sucks.
Oh, I think I did. Did you tell them you? Or that was on the Southern Whiskey, on that podcast when you got on there and left them that flight. Is this
Yeah.
part of the flight that you left? Okay.
Yeah, but what do you think about the nose on this
Yeah,
one?
it's big. I mean, it's big.
Yeah, I mean it has kind of that barrel proof nose to it, and I mean it has been proofed down a little bit, but it does still have the really strong oak on the nose.
Yeah, it does, but it's not. This doesn't scream beam. You know what I mean? Like this didn't that
Sure.
kind of nutty thing that just like
The nuttiness.
like dead giveaway.
Yeah.
In the tasting I did last night, we did the had the 25th anniversary Knob Creek in there.
Oh yeah.
And it's it's wonderful. It's a very, I think and that's all single barrels as well. But the one that that we had that I opened or had open was a very on-profile Knob Creek. I would not consider this like an overly on-profile.
So
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking earlier too about how you like the kind of off-profile picks. Mm-hmm. So and you just took a sip too. Is this palate-wise off sip for you, or off
No.
off palate? Excuse me.
No, and it's not. And it's a very subtle. Sometimes Knob Creek single barrel, 120 proof picks I don't mean to say abrasive or aggressive, but the finishes can be very powerful and
Yeah.
very, and this is a very mild and kind of it kind of spreads across the back of the palate, but it's not like it goes racing to the back and whatever. I mean, this is, especially for barrel proof, this is a very the finish on this is not overly it doesn't like come in swinging. It just kind of spreads across the back. That's nice.
So one of the things that I find interesting too is to talk to people in your position about what their taste profile is. So what do you consider your palate to be or lean more towards?
It's interesting. An interesting question, and I think it's a hard question to answer almost, because I like to think that I have an appreciation for good whiskey, and
Sure.
I really enjoy Scotch.
Really?
I really enjoy the peaty Scotch.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy the Highland single malt Scotch.
Sure.
And I enjoy Irish whiskey. And I enjoy really light and mild and easy to drink low proof bourbon.
Sure.
And I like heavy, full bodied barrel proof bourbon. And honestly, I love rye whiskey. I really love really good rye whiskey.
Yeah.
I don't like bad rye whiskey, but I like really good. So I don't know. I mean, I may have just described somebody who likes to drink too much rather than somebody who can determine what they
Sure.
But it's hard for me to say, oh, this is people will jump in and say, oh, I like barrel proof wheated bourbon, or and again, I'm looking for where it registers with me on the palate, and in my mind, when it gets towards the sides, when I taste it on the sides of my tongue, it starts to get bitter. It starts to get, I think, green. I think tannic. I think, and so those are things that I don't go for. For example, building. I honestly think Batch 7 is one of the best examples of this, of Kentucky How, where I ended up with this combination of really nice sweetness on the front of the palate that carries all the way through, and there's a spice or a finish on the back end. It was like you could draw a line from the tip of your tongue all the way back, and that's and I just thought that was a great representation of total complexity, so I don't know. I don't know that I could. Maybe I'm not smart enough to be able to say, oh, this is what kind of palate I have, or something like that. I'm not really sure, but
I don't think it's an intelligence thing by any means.
How would you answer that question?
For me, it's kind of the same way that you did it, but in terms of
So totally ducking it is what you're saying. Like that's what I did. I realized I just totally ducked it.
For me, it's more of like what I tend to prefer flavor-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, how it hits my palate, but whether or not what I find to be enjoyable meshes well together, or I can visit and revisit, upon re-drinking certain whiskeys. So it's never really one particular answer. I'm just always interested in finding out how different people approach the answer to that question,
Sure.
because it's always, it's the same reason that you don't find exactly the same whiskey from Four Roses to Maker's Mark to Heaven Hill. I mean, everybody has something a little bit different, and it could be, that you are building off of something that has already been established, or you're creating something new. And that's what excites me too about bourbon is, the innovation that comes about and building upon the heritage and the legacies of, bourbon drinkers past and everything. But
one of my probably. Well, not one of like my favorite thing about doing the tastings that I do here at the end is not to put 5 things of a similar profile in front of people, but put 5 very different things in front of them and tell them up front, you're going to like some of these and you're not going to like some of these.
Right.
And I've done my job if you can tell the difference, and I've done my job if you can appreciate why you like that or what about it you like.
Right.
And I love when people sit down and they have this preconceived notion like, oh, I've heard about that and I know it's really expensive, so that's going to be my favorite. And at the end they're like,
it wasn't.
Yeah. So
it's the Pappy effect.
Yeah, right. But and sometimes it is. Sometimes Pappy is their favorite.
Sure.
And it just but I think that's the fun part about it, and that's and find out what you gravitate towards and what you what you like, and oftentimes I think what you like is not, you can't say it's this or it's this product or whatever. It's like what would the perfect bourbon be for you if you were to be able to, like, if you had to describe what you would look for in the perfect bourbon, what would that look like?
Right.
That would be a fun thing to do with people.
Sure. So Dixon has also brought to the table a couple of things. One of them is the newest release of the Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. The other, I don't think you're going to disclose to me what that actually is.
No, never.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But it's
take all your fancy equipment.
But it's a rye whiskey. So did this go into one of the batches of Kentucky Owl Rye?
This is actually batch 3 rye.
Oh yeah?
At barrel proof.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, snap, man.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And not where I thought this was going to go. Okay, well, I think we should start with the birthday bourbon, though, because...
No, I'm excited. So I got this bottle and opened it, and I was... And this is in no... and maybe we're going to taste this live on your...
No, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to be totally honest that when my relationship the last several years with birthday bourbon was, man, I love how this smells.
Sure.
And then I would taste it, and I
not
would
so
kind
much.
of be like, I really wish that this tasted as good, because the nose was, the nose is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And, this year, this stuff's
101, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the nose, like, knocked me down, and it was completely off. It's not the normal birthday bourbon nose.
But it is similar to Old Forester products, though, I would say.
Yeah, but
it's just not birthday
I keep
bourbon.
getting all this red fruit in it, like real.
Oh, yeah.
Like real.
Like real cherries.
Yes, like cherries. Like
Yeah.
And so I'll be interested to see, but it was total red fruit, total cherry, like, and so I waited for it to disappoint, but I felt like the cherries came through on the palate. Like I felt like it was.
Oh, it definitely does.
It holds up.
Yeah.
The taste on the palate, it holds up so much more to the nose than normal birthday bourbons for me.
And the finish is so good.
So I was really excited about this bottle. I mean, I
Yeah.
it was.
This is
Again,
definitely
I have
one
a
of the
lot
more
of them.
inviting and interesting birthday bourbons of recent memory. Because I thought that last year kind of fell a little bit flat, honestly.
I don't know. I don't know why I harken back to 2013 as if it was the greatest year for whiskey of all time. But it was the year of the 2013 birthday bourbon was fabulous.
That
but
2013 Four Roses.
Yeah, the 125 Four Roses. That was like that was the bourbon that made me go over the top.
Yeah.
Like that's the one that sent me over the edge.
Yeah.
I still have many of those that I have collected, and that are it's one of those special occasion bottles for me. My our son, our second child, was born. So my wife's always like, "Why do you have so many of these?" And I was like, "Well, look, there's birth year. It's 2011. Sims was born this year. We gotta have some of those." And we got these 13s.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But I'm really high on this year's birthday bourbon.
This is, and I think that the proof has really helped it as well. I mean, the fact that they went up a little bit, to the 101.
I agree. I mean, I just it was a surprise to me how much not how much I enjoyed it, but I think they did
It's kind of cherry cola ish. Not that it's like artificial flavored, but it's just a very like sweet and inviting bourbon. And
I just started singing that Lola song in my head when you said cherry cola.
It's funny because we kind of, as bourbon snobs or whiskey snobs or whatever, turn our nose up at putting something like this into a cocktail or something. But I think this would be a fantastic old-fashioned bourbon. I think that it would mingle really well with the bitters and the
I could
simple
go
sweet.
there.
Yeah. I think that it's something that if anybody has this and is interested in making that, let me know. And
Yeah, it was there, but I thought you would enjoy this. This is, I'm typically skeptical, not skeptical, but Old Forester birthday bourbon is, again, I always have this same expectation over the last several years, and I feel like this one kind of is a little. This one delivered on both sides.
Yeah, for sure. So, what kind of, as we move into our last pour, which is this, the barrel proof Alrye batch 3. What kind of excites you about the whiskey market right now? What keeps you wanting to be a part of it?
I don't know. I realize that there's everybody gets excited this time of the year, and they're like, oh, it's hunting season or or whatever. And I've been in the middle of redoing the whiskey list for the tavern for about the last 3 months, and it's because you try to keep it as accurate as you can, but every time I turn around, there's something new or something, and I think that's, not a bad thing, but it's certainly a challenge in trying to, I'm ready for this release season to be over with so that we can establish what we got and what we're doing and
It-
what's what.
Has this been kind of a challenging release season for you then, or
I'm just like sounding like a grumpy old man or something like that.
you definitely didn't just kill that?
Yeah.
Little sample bottle or-
There's no reason to leave a little bit at the bottom of the bottle.
No.
I didn't kill it. I put it in your glass.
Now I know you did, but oh man,
Yeah. This is,
oh that nose is just—it's just heaven.
now, this is 125 proof.
Doesn't smell like it.
And I'm not going to. I'm not. We're not going to release this at barrel proof.
Sure.
Only because, and it's not because I, by all means, I prefer it at barrel proof. I have one of those little bottles in my house, of all of them. But rye at barrel proof is not for. I don't mean to say it's not for everyone, but what the idea with the rye is to make it to not lose all the structure, the backbone, the complexity, and the barrel, to not lose that by diluting it so far that it just turns into like floor cleaner or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But to make it slightly more approachable than barrel proof rye whiskey, there's a high rye content here.
Well, of course.
Well, I mean, you know that it's 51, but I'm talking about high.
High rye.
And so at barrel proof, oftentimes, if you're not prepared for it, this just becomes all big spicy finish, and you lose the front end of it. And so it's taking it down to the point where you kind of find that a little bit of the balance. But I can tell you that, batch one was 110. 110.6, 110. I can't remember. Then batch two, totally out of my normal wheelhouse, ended up being much lower than I thought it was going to be. And I did that blind, and I didn't do it blind once. I did it blind, and I chose it 4 different times. But I can tell you,
that's really cool.
this is going to be the highest proof release of Kentucky Owl Rye to date.
I can't imagine that it could get any better with water added to it. I mean, this is an exceptional.
I'm going to dial this back just a little bit. The other thing is, and I don't want to I will if you want me to, but I won't
Go ahead.
I won't get on my soapbox, but I'm fully committed to this third one being it's going to be a 10-year-old age statement.
Really?
Yeah, because the 10-year-old stuff, this 10-year-old stuff is so
Interesting.
freaking good.
Yeah.
And I don't really. My rant is on age statements, which I will stay away from unless you want me to. But
We are an hour and 50 minutes into this episode.
yeah,
so-
I'm sure you're going to cut a lot of it. But I my point is like this 10-year-old stuff is better than the 11-year-old stuff.
Wow.
Like I don't want to keep it out of there.
Sure. Man.
So I have no interest in sitting and waiting for it. Like, okay, watching the
Sure.
clock tick 11.
Sure.
Yeah.
And even 6 months down the line. I mean, if this is what's in the future for Kentucky Owl Rye, I mean,
Well,
cheers to you guys.
it's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Dixon, I just want to say thank you so much for opening up your home pretty much to me and the podcast and everything, and being a gracious host and letting me kind of dive into your family history and what kind of makes you tick or makes you happy.
I say this to you, and I say this to your listeners with all sincerity. it's opportunities, and I mean opportunities.
Yeah.
To be able to talk about, where I'm coming from and what I believe in, and
Yeah.
and the things that are important to me. I treat that as an opportunity, not not a I get to go be on a podcast, or I get,
Sure.
or whatever. And I really am honored that you would give me the opportunity to kind of tell, about what makes me tick, what makes me go, what makes me, we beat it to death, but to at
Yeah.
least let
No,
me
no,
explain,
absolutely.
what allows me to sleep at night, and that's cool. And for me, it's something I appreciate, I'm
Yeah.
grateful for, and it's an honor.
Well, I really do appreciate that, but I just want to say too that the fact that Chris Thomas invited you to Southern Whiskey Society, and that I was able to just approach you as a person and be able to share pours with you and chat. I mean, that to me was so encouraging, just in terms of like, oh, I could totally email him and have a conversation with him at the very least about whether or not he would be willing to come on the show. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to sit down and drink with me.
I let me one last thing. Like,
Yeah.
I know you're going to really. I know this has probably been bothering you for a long time, and I need to apologize. I've been meaning to write you a thank you note for that Jim Beam sample, and it's been on my list, and totally. I just haven't gotten around to it, and I'm really sorry. So.
My grandmother would be so disappointed in you.
I've been waiting on the stationery to come in, is what it is.
Dixon Dedman, thank you so much
That's
for
my pleasure.
hanging
Thank
out with
you.
me. If you would like to follow up with the show, we are at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us using thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com if you have questions or comments. Leave us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes, please. That helps us out so much trying to reach new listeners. Check out our apparel and merch at bourbonshop.threadless.com. And then if you want to become a patron of the show, you can head to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast for as little as $1 a month. That really does help us out. You may not think it does, but it really does help us, and we would appreciate that. Thank you all so much for listening. Dixon, thank you for hanging out with me again. I appreciate it. I will see you next week, but until then, I'm Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast.